Hi friends, Francisco here, founder of Led by Community. Today I have a very special announcement to share with all of you. Today I want to introduce you to a new brand, part of Led by Community family. It's named Community Week. So yes, today I'm announcing the Community Week online summit that will be happening from March 3rd till March 7th this year. Yes, that's just 31 days more from the time I'm recording this video. So I wanted to put attention on my screen now so you can see what it's all about. So Community Week is an online summit. We have top speakers to participate. We have sessions from Monday to Friday. And you can see here that the whole summit will be hosted by Victoria Kumberbach. We love her. She's so kind and so happy and always smiling. So thank you, Victoria, for joining us as host. Then what you can expect from the online summit, of course, latest trends in community strategy. You can, of course, advance your career and connect with fellow community builders. But what you're wondering, okay, Francisco, but who I'm going to learn from? So many friends and partners have agreed to support this online summit, like Carrie Melissa Jones. She's also a known community strategist. We invited also Esther Trapadox from, she is running community at Amplitude. We have also from Netherlands, Ana Maria Dorgo, that she's founder of Handle with Brain. She's expert in L&D. Also able to join us in Valently. She's also running the community there. We have Arif Abulabi. She's currently running Woman in Tech SEO, a 14K community. So you can learn so much from her. Also, one of my favorites is Christina Garnett. She's doing wonders on social. She's so funny. She's so great. So she's currently helping our friends at Hey Horka as Chief Customer Officer. And she's also doing other fractional work. Local talent, Rosie Cherry. She's also lovely, and she's she's CEO of Ministry of Testing, but as well, she runs a community of practice named Rosieland. Ilker, she's ex-Google, and she has done great work at the Olympics. And he's currently co-founder with Todd Nilsson of TalentLed. Then we have Eric Martin, currently head of community at Midjourney, and we know that he's also leading the community club. Edjan Sante, he's a head of community at Persona, based in San Francisco. He's doing wonders using growth strategies and AI, and we are going to learn so much from them. Then we have from Culture Amp, Mario. He's also senior community manager there, doing beautiful stuff. Andy, he's leading ecosystem at Glide. Of course, we have also Brian Oblinger, that is founder of the Community Strategy Academy, and Richard Millington, that is founder of FeverB, both known consultants. Then what we have done for this online summit is something a bit special, because the focus was in connecting community builders, that we enabled a hub, access to the hub you can see on our website. So the whole event, the whole summit will be gated and happening into a private community. So let me show you how the hub looks like. You can see on the left, navigation, you can see the members, then we have agenda and events. Then you can see all the sessions listed right here. And let's say, oh, I want to attend Brian's. So you click Brian, and then you need just to confirm, yes, I'm going. That will send you a calendar invite and reminders to access the session right on time. And you can do the same with any of the sessions. Of course, I want to also participate in the networking, now that we are going to have every day at the end of the sessions. So you can also say, I'm going. After that, we have enabled a few spaces where you can actually come, say hello, share your intro. In that way, you can get to know and connect with other attendees. Of course, one space where I'm going to be sharing a few special announcements and things like that. In general, we want for you to connect. You can just see who are the members who join. If you want to connect with someone, you can just follow. If you get the follow back, you will be able to chat in DMs right away with them. Now you can see here your inbox and everything else in the mind feed. So, in short, because this video is not short at all, but I wanted to mostly give you a heads up on how the experience for this online summit will be. We have put our heart building this site, inviting speakers, and also creating this special hub where you are going to feel safe, learning from others, and also connecting with fellow community builders. We are looking forward to have you. This summit is free to join, so feel free to invite everyone in your team, everyone that you feel can get benefits out of this online summit. So the Community Week Online Summit is here. I hope you enjoy it. Of course, I did a song for this project, and I'm hoping you'll enjoy it. See you inside the hub. Bye-bye.
The world is gathering, the time is now. The first Community Week is taking its bow. From March 3rd, 5 days strong, a global stage where we all belong. Fireside chats, keynotes and more, talks, Q&As, insights to explore. Join the hub, come take your seat. This is where the pros all meet. The Victoria's leading, guiding the way. The future of community starts today. Top voices, bold minds ready to share. Join us now, we'll see you there. So this is Community Week, the very first one, where builders and leaders unite as one. 5 days of learning, 5 days to grow. The best in the world, now you're in the show. Meet the speakers, hear their call. We're learning together, one and all. Sign up now, be part of the week. A whole world of wisdom, come take a peek. Carrie, Melissa, Andy too, Rosie, Richard, just to name a few. Ilka, Jillian, Eric's here. Their insights shaping the future this year. Esther, Anna Maria, Ariage too. Christina, Brian, so much to do. From marketing growth to talent and care, all the community answers awaiting there. Victoria's leading, guiding the way. The first Community Week starts today. Talks, networking, lessons so bright. The future is here, step into the light. This is Community Week, the very first one, where builders and leaders unite as one. 5 days of learning, 5 days to grow. The best in the world, now you're in the show. Meet the speakers, hear their call. We're learning together, one and all. Sign up now, be part of the week. A whole world of wisdom, come take a peek. Every session, every voice, every question, make your choice. From London to New York, the world's in tune. Community Week, it's coming soon. This is your moment, this is your space. Come find your people, come take your place. The first of many, the future is bright. Let's build together, step into the light. The time is here. 5 days of magic once a year. From talks to connections, from learning to fun. The first Community Week, it's just begun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's session of Talks with Pros. I am Candice, and for those of you who are here to join us, please feel free to settle in, grab some water, get comfortable. I'm just going to do a bit of housekeeping to get us started. If you would like to say hello and get to know each other, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. You're also welcome to share your LinkedIn profile because, you know, this is about community and it's important to keep connection going. So before we dive in, I just want to say a very big thank you to Bettermode for sponsoring our Talks and Pros series. Their support makes these events possible. So if you'd really like to learn a little bit more about them, you can check out the boxes below this stream and feel free to enjoy while we are going through today's session. One other thing, we also have some upcoming events in the Led by Community, and we don't want you to miss out on them. So on the 12th of February, which is tomorrow, there's from attendees to advocates with Francisco. On the 13th, we're doing a Building Together event. And like the video we just watched now, there is a Community Week, which is an online summit from the 3rd to the 7th of March. The early bird tickets are over on Friday. So please check out the link in the chat to go and see what you can join in on, because I'm very excited to be there personally, and for some of those networking sessions. Lastly, we'll also be having a London Community Week in July. So if you need to figure out when that is, go to the website and you can RSVP and get your tickets there. So last bit of housekeeping. As we go through the session, please feel free to drop any of your questions in the chat at any time. Bri will be able to go through them, but she'll also be engaging with you. So please feel free to answer in the chat as we go through or as she's talking. And last thing, we will have a Q&A at the end. So your questions will get answered directly by Bri. The recording will be available on the video library after this. So if you do have to drop off, you can be aware of that. But without further ado, I think it's time to introduce the lady of the hour, Bri Leever, who is a community strategy with a decade of experience building and studying communities. She's the founder of Ember, which I'm a massive fan of, and there she helps brands and creators design and grow intentional online communities around their businesses. So, Bri, I'd love to hand over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. What an intro and what a song. If I had any doubts about AI, they've been washed away. by- That song was incredible. So thank you all for having me. Hi, everyone. Yeah, Candace agrees. I love it. Um, so thank you for joining us. I would also love to hear a little bit about who we have joining us today. So if you can just pop in the chat um, who you are, where you are, what type of community you lead or are building. Would love to get a beat on who is here. And I'll share a little bit about myself while you do that. All right. So this is going to be a talk about the 4 types of communities. And um, I'm guessing that we have some fairly senior community folks here. So this is going to be interesting to you in a couple ways. I work a lot, most of the time, with new brands and creators and solopreneurs who are getting their community started for the first time. So this talk is really geared to set the landscape for people who might be moving from community curious into a place of commitment to a new community. And while that might not be your exact positioning, what I encourage you and invite you to participate in with this talk is to really observe your own evolution and interest in communities over time. The chat's open. I'm going to be prompting you with a lot of questions. And I think it's just as important when we're learning and observing about communities that we observe what we personally are drawn to, because it'll give you a good indicator of not only for yourself where to interact, but where the community spaces at large are headed to. So, wonderful. Okay, we've got, yes, Candace from South Africa. That's the one perk of me being up at 6 in the morning for a talk here in Hawaii, is that I finally get to interact with my European and African time zones a little bit more easily. Britt in Spain, Vanessa. Okay, wonderful. Looking to start ERG while at my new job. Wonderful. Okay. Well, a little bit about me. I'm a community strategist and the founder at Ember. Like Candace mentioned, I'm a dog and plant mom, and I have a great partner who is now my fiance. We're getting married in August. Here in Hawaii, I love to surf and dive, and I'm a big birder. And I help consultants, coaches, and community creators launch and grow profitable and purposeful community-powered businesses. So a little bit of my own story. I created a community of brand ambassadors that scaled into a multi-million-dollar revenue stream and primary growth driver for a social enterprise in Portland, Oregon. I did that for 6 years, and then I started consulting, building communities for brands and organizations. And now I've transitioned into the paid side of the community world, working with consultants, coaches, and creators. So I've built probably somewhere upwards of 40 to 50 communities and helped them launch, and dissected about 40 more through my series, Community Dissection Online. So it's when you have that volume, it's really interesting to watch the trends emerge. And this talk is really an emergence of those trends that I've seen in the community spaces. Just checking back in. Eduardo from Brazil, Brandon from New York City. Digital gaming. Okay, wonderful. Thank you all for being here. I'm glad to see the crowd, such a global crowd. All right, here's where we're headed today. So we're going to start with defining community, just to get us on the same page. I'm not going to belabor that point because you all speak the language, which is great. We're going to work through the 4 types of communities. And the things that we're not going to get to today are factors to consider and how to test. We just don't have enough time. This is part of a greater talk that I give, and we can link to the free masterclass if you want to work through all of it. But I am going to talk about where to get support. And you guys are all in good hands being here in the Led by Community. All right, let's dive in. So I define community as a group of people who have identified as members of a group that gathers for connection, education, and a common purpose. It's a simple definition, but the 2 main boundaries around this definition that help differentiate it from being confused with something like an audience is, number 1, the container for connection, education, and a common purpose. And that container can be time-bound, it can be indefinite, it can be a physical location, it can be a virtual location, it can be a hodgepodge of locations, but there is some sort of container involved in community building if we're going to do it effectively. And the second boundary is around the identity that people have as a part of that group. You've all probably seen communities that where this identity evolves. People start calling themselves like a new word that represents their membership in the community. And that's when you know you're on the right track. Wonderful. Yeah, that's right. Candace, make sure you add your LinkedIn link in the chat, and then people can see it and connect after this session too. Chet, thanks for sharing. Okay, great. Chet, you're in the right place. This will be such a good talk for you to kind of get the full scope of the space. All right, let's proceed. A little bit of what community is not: an audience, social media. If you've had a job in the community spaces for 2 seconds, you know how frustrating it is to see all the community management roles that are actually social media marketing roles. And while an audience can certainly support your community and your community strategy, it's not the same thing as gathering and creating a community. Your following is not the same. And I also wanted to differentiate between singular communal experiences and a community, right? So just because you have a forum doesn't mean that your members have an identity as a part of the group. Just because you're doing a webinar series doesn't mean that there's really any connection that's been created in a communal experience. So I'm not trying to, what's not important here is to be like, well, that's a community and that's not a community. And I'm not trying to create absolutism here, but I think the more that we are able to clearly define the container and the boundaries around our community, the easier it's going to be to facilitate belonging between your members, and the easier it's going to be for your members to understand what is actually happening here and be signaled that this is the right place for them to join. All right, and last thing I'll say about this: while social media builds an audience of followers, community builds a home for your members. All right. let's proceed. Hi, Hillary from Kansas City. Okay, SaaS company. Wonderful. So lovely to meet everyone. Okay, let's proceed to the 4 types of communities. And I can already like hear it happening in your brain in the background. If you're coming from or lead a very mature community, you're going to have your community might have elements and programs of all 4 of these types of communities. So again, the intention for this talk is to especially focus on when you're just beginning a community. My recommendation is to find which one of the 4 types you and your business align with the most and start pretty securely with that one type. Because when you're just starting out, it's so difficult to know what to focus on. We've got so many different ideas, so many different priorities. If you're at a company, they probably have a lot of ideas for you to execute. So even showing them this talk and having you and your team identify the one place, the one type of community you want to start with is going to, number one, focus your work. It's going to focus your team's work. And it's also going to be so much easier to attract the right people for your community because there's not several different value propositions being thrown at them at the same time. All right, let's get into it. Hi, Sophia from the UK. Okay, just started a new job building community for a sustainable space. Wonderful. We're lucky to have you here. Okay, on the x-axis, we're starting with free communities versus paid. Very simple, very easy to understand. Oh yeah, that's a great question, Candace. Thanks for everybody who here is still trying to decide on what type of community you are building, like early stage versus who is here who like has a full-fledged community. Would love to know. And I will be asking as we work through this, and I'll be asking you to think about either your own community or the communities that you are involved with. So I'll be asking for examples of these 4 types from your experience. All right, let's move on to the y-axis. We have education-centric communities versus connection-centric communities. Now, in any community, there is a combination of education and connection. The limitation of this visual is that it makes the education and connection look mutually exclusive, and this is not an either-or scenario. So remember, this is like flexible and fluid. The lines maybe need like to be like dotted hash marks to communicate that. Education leads to connection, connection leads to education. So let this matrix be fluid in your mind. But I've found that the more clearly you can identify which side, north or south, you're on, the easier it will be for people to understand what your community is, and the easier it will be for you to keep your community focused and simple in the beginning. Now, what I mean by education-centric communities is these communities have an intended learning journey in mind for their members. They can have cohort-based programs. They're education-centric, and I don't mean like you're bringing in kind of an a la carte menu of people to be teaching and guiding. I mean, there's like, we're going on the learning and education road trip from point A to point B. If you want to learn how to launch your new community, join this 8-week community container. Okay. This accelerators are a great example of this. Connection-centric communities, on the other hand, are a broader container with people in the same stage, but they're coming and going from different places, and the value of the experience in the community comes from the interactions between your members. So membership communities tend to be connection-centric, and where you land on this matrix determines the challenges and strengths that you are signing up for. It also determines what tech might be the best fit for you, what tech you might want to avoid. It informs your strategy for your community and your business. All right, let's dig in, but let's get started with some examples to make this matrix come to life. First, we've got free and connection-centric communities. I call these collaborative communities. This is where the connections between your members supports the end product. A few examples of these types of communities. Is anybody here in the community club or the CMX community or talk-based community? A lot of the free free communities in the community space tend to be connection centric. And my hunch is because community people know how to do connection really well. It works really, really well when it's a community space. Those people just usually want to be connected to each other. I run a social club. Okay, wonderful. Yep, social club. This is where, and God help us all, this is where like primarily the Facebook groups lived for the first like iteration of online community building. If any brand had a Facebook group, it was here in the free connection centric space. A digital community and in-person community, which at times overlap and at times don't. Both are connection centric, however, waver between free and paid depending on our activations. Brandon, that's great. Thanks for that insight. That's super helpful to hear. I'm excited to, as I explain these more, if other insights unfold for you, please feel free to share in the chat. A couple of my favorite communities here, the collaborative communities. Are you guys familiar with the Lego Ideas community? Let me know in the chat. This is a community, it's like a product, it like very clearly, this community supports their product department. Yeah, me too, Candace. I did a community dissection episode. If you're not familiar with this community, just Google like Lego Ideas community dissection and it'll pop up. But basically people, average customers submit CAD designs for future Lego sets that they want to see come to life. So you've got your like Taylor Swift Eras Tour Lego sets, and people are all like proposing which Lego set should come into production. And then everybody else in the community is upvoting the ones that they want to see. And it is like feverish, like the fever for the Lego sets being and having your Lego set selected is there's some hype in there. So it's a really fun community. Brandon, I think you'll resonate with this structure of this community. So Tech Ladies is another great example. They started as like a free connection-centric community, helping women in tech get connected to job opportunities. And since launching, they've introduced a paid like membership model as well. But they also got acquired. So they're a great example of a connection-centric community. Chamber of Commerce is another example. A lot of alumni communities will be in this collaborative community space. Maybe you're a part of your college alumni community. But let me know in the chat any other collaborative communities that come to your mind. I'd love to hear them. And with that, I will slowly start to move to our next one. Nurturing communities. So this is where communal learning supports the product. And this is, if you're in a SaaS community, or leading like a community for a SaaS product, I almost guarantee your community is going to land in this corner. And that's because with those SaaS tools, there's usually like a learning curve. There's like your ability to use the tool effectively is it's enhanced in a communal learning environment. So, and a lot of like, there's a migration from where we used to maybe just have like standalone courses to help the education. We've slowly realized how ineffective those can be, and those standalone siloed on-demand courses are slowly getting replaced with a more communal experience. They still have their place, but usually in a greater ecosystem of support, because I would love for you to count on 5 hands how many courses you've signed up for and have not finished. Great. Welcome, Angelique. A few of my favorite examples that I've also dissected are the Etsy community as well as the HubSpot community. And I'd love to hear if you are a part of any nurturing communities or if you lead a nurturing community. Please let me know in the chat. Now, Etsy and HubSpot communities, these are like such robust, mature communities. They probably, at the end of the day, have like programming in all four of these categories. But from how I understand the original intention of the communities, I would put them in nurturing because their ultimate purpose is to help support the end product by nurturing their customers to use the product more effectively. So the HubSpot community is all about teaching people how to do inbound marketing more effectively. I'm currently working for SCOM, okay, which is the community where people can talk about service delivery issues here in South Africa. Oh, okay. It was originally just for sending push notifications about issues, but now it's got Ask My Street community function. So useful for various community connections. Oh, that's interesting. So Candace, I'd probably put that, if it's free, I'd probably put it in the collaborative community space. It sounds more like the intention of that community is for people like sharing information between each other. You're not inviting people into the community and saying, hey, we're gonna like teach you how to overcome these infrastructure issues or what you can do. Maybe that's a component, but if it was more like an educational journey where people were learning and being instructed on how to overcome the challenge and the problem, I'd put that in nurturing community. Hillary says we've been a nurturing community. However, our new director is shifting us much more to build a support bubble, and it has been pretty painful. Okay, Hillary, tell me more about what support bubble means. Like, as in, like customer support. As in, is it like you're moving from customer success to customer support? Am I reflecting that accurately? Would running a Stack Overflow community belong in this quadrant? Davey, tell me a little bit more about what's involved in that community. I'd love to hear. Oh yeah, okay, great. Candace, thanks for sharing. I'm gonna give people a second to comment. Awesome, thanks, Francisco. Okay. Okay, Davey and Hillary, if you guys have follow-ups, add them to the chat. But I'm gonna proceed. I have one more slide for this free portion because how a community supports a business through communal learning or community connection can impact several different, like any department of the community. And I found that when CEOs get excited about community, they want to do it all. Maybe you've experienced this. And especially in the beginning, it's really important to focus your energy on like the main purpose of the community and the main like department, for lack of a better word, that you want the community to support in the business. Yeah, Sophia, absolutely. It's totally possible to have a community that overlaps in both. Mature communities absolutely will. What I've found is that when starting out, however, it's usually helpful to identify just one space that you're beginning with. All right. This is another, just like taking what's on the free side, the nurturing and collaborative communities, and showing how those communities can support the business. So under product, support, sales, marketing, customer success. And Hillary, if I understand your issue correctly, it's that maybe you started more in customer success with a nurturing community, and now your director is pushing, is pushing for more support, and they're transitioning from here to here, which is so tough. I also support communities are just like not my favorite, to be totally frank. They don't really feel like a community to me. They just feel like a support forum, which is fine, but I'm not gonna like identify. It's just not very compelling. It's not like a group that I want to be a part of. It's like a place I want to come to get somebody to answer my question. All right, just wanted to show you that briefly. So let's continue in the 4 types of communities. So next we have transformative communities. This is where communal learning is the product. Now, the pros of these communities, these transformative communities, oh, okay, Hillary, we no longer are supporting the other departments in our company. It feels very counterintuitive and it isn't going well so far. Yeah, Hillary, I understand. That's really tough. Especially yeah, especially when it's a top-down approach. I do have an interesting episode of Dear Bri is my podcast, and it's an advice column for community conundrums, fiascos, and drama. And episode 2 with Marie Schott is I'd encourage you to listen to it. The letter was about a scenario where there's like this top-down shift in the organization and the community is having to pivot. And she approached that conundrum with such finesse and grace and strategy. It was incredible. So take a look at that episode. I think you might. It was a different like topic and question, but I think the spirit of it will speak to your issue. Okay. Transformative communities. So the pros of these communities, they're easier to message and attract the right members because there's a very clear outcome and transformation that is occurring in these communities. It's also easier to get these members to adopt new technology. So for transformative communities, it's like saying, hey, we're all going to go on this learning road trip from point A to point B. We're going to be traveling in a bus. That is our vehicle. And if you don't like the vehicle, you can walk, but we're all going to be doing it. So it's kind of the easiest place to introduce new technology if you're like, we're testing out this new all-in-one community platform. Like people are more willing to overcome some of the friction and challenges that might come with new technology because they have a compelling transformation that they are seeking. And you can ask for and require a little bit more trust from your members to help get them there. This is a sweet spot for me. I love these communities. This is a huge trend for course creators that are moving from their standalone education to this community model. They're like pivoting into this space. This is also where you'll find a lot of like cohort-based programs. The cons of this are it can be hard to find new members in this model because especially if that road trip is all starting at the same time, the energy that's required to like essentially relaunch your community with every cohort can be a lot of work. The other con of this community design is that it can be difficult to get your members to connect. So when they're coming to learn something from you, to undergo a specific transformation, you have to be so explicit and just a broken record when it comes to reiterating how critical their connections to other members is in facilitating their learning journey. Because your members are coming for that transformative experience, they don't always come with the intention of connecting with each other. So it's your job as the community manager to be so explicitly clear about how that extra step of connecting with other members is going to enhance and inform their experience in the community. Some examples of these communities, we have the Upside community membership, which is for corporate consultants. Also, if anybody has participated in any of Seth Godin's workshops, I did Alt MBA years ago. There's the marketing seminar, podcasting seminar. I just think Seth Godin, I know he's the marketing guy, but he really is the original community guy in my book. So I'd love to know if there's any examples communities that you've been a part of. A lot of like personal and professional development might fit in this category, like a boot camp, an accelerator, a decelerator, retreats, conferences. Some conferences can be maybe more connection centric, but I'd love to hear any that resonate with you. Yeah, product and marketing growth. Yeah, absolutely, Candace. All right, share your examples in the chat and I'm going to proceed. Finally, we have networking communities. And this is where your connections between your members is the product. It's what people are paying to have access to. So if a transformative community is like that road trip that I talked about from going from A to B, the networking community is like a web of serendipitous connections that is spread across a city's transportation infrastructure. So some of the pros for this type of community, members join with the intention to connect. So usually it's easier to get engagement flowing in these communities. These communities have, frankly, stronger bonds and stronger foundations than transformative communities. The value is based on those interactions between members, and it's not requiring you or the community leader or the guide to be constantly facilitating more transformative experiences. You can really, it's a lot less lift once your members have the habituated and normative behaviors of how to connect with each other in meaningful ways. Now, the cons are humans are real dummies, and we just need to be taught how to speak to each other and interact with each other in ways that are meaningful, and we take it for granted. And so many community builders who start in this networking community space especially just make the assumption that people are going to know how to interact with each other in ways that are meaningful, and you can't make that assumption if you're starting in this quadrant. Some of the cons, members can be overwhelmed with the traffic in these communities, especially as they grow. And if you don't have like a very intentional pruning process for these communities, they can get overwhelming and cluttered and difficult to find what you need very easily. Information organization is critical in these communities, and it's frankly something that they're all struggling with. There's not really many tech solutions that have that figured out. It can also be difficult to nurture your members because these communities, connection in and of itself isn't an outcome. It's a vessel to some other outcome. So when you're working with connection-centric communities, you have to do the work on the back end to understand what is the outcome that the connection is leading to. Maybe it's expand your network. Maybe it's find a new friend. Maybe it's like practice alongside of someone. But whatever it is, you have to do the work up front. And I challenge you, if you do have a connection-centric community, to use the word connection as little as possible in your marketing, because it's just not specific enough to the outcome and people don't know what it means. So that's the tricky part. I would put led by community here under networking communities. It's a membership space. You join to connect with other community professionals. There's clearly some very intentional programs that are education centric to guide you in your learning journey of community building. But I would say that the foundation of led by community rests here in networking communities. But Candace, Paula, and Francisco, let me know if I'm off on that. Another one of my favorite communities for networking communities is called Old Girls Club. And it's a fabulous community for women, working women. And then another one is called Porch, and it's a community for immigrant entrepreneurs in Canada and in the US. And they have a really amazing, vibrant, supportive community. I did a community dissection episode with them. All right, and I'd love to know, are you a part of any networking communities, any connection-centric paid communities? I would love to hear if you are engaged with or perhaps lead a community like this. Yeah, okay, great. That's great to know, Candace. Okay, so where does this leave us? If you are just starting out, this is a great time for you to discern where might you begin? What type of community are you starting with? If you have a more mature community, you might identify where your community began and where it is evolving into. You might also notice what are the types of communities that you yourself are attracted to. And has this changed? Because I've seen my own trends. I've seen a lot of a certain subset of free communities migrating into paid models. I've also seen, at least in the creator spaces, people being hungry to move from teacher or educator or guide, and they're eager to move into a role of facilitator and connector. And so there's this like interesting migration from education centric to connection centric. Doesn't mean that education centric is going away anytime soon, but I've just noticed a lot of people being eager to like personally make that transformation. Still struggling with nurturing and collaborative. Can there be a mix, like an employee resource group? Yeah, Vanessa, totally. So there can always be fluidity between these. Don't get too caught up in it needing to be like squarely in one. I would ask, like, for if it's a nurturing community, usually there's like a person who is creating that learning journey. So they are teaching, instructing, educating people, either one person or like a small group of people who are guiding that learning journey. If it's a pretty open container where your members or your employees are simply interacting and being prompted to share in ways that create value for the group, I put that more in collaborative community. But yeah, it's a great insight. Thanks, Vanessa. All right, with that, I'll be open for questions. I know I answered a lot of questions as we went through, so but that's what we've got for today.
Thanks so much, Bri. I really love a really good diagram that makes it easy to visualize and like map something onto. So thank you so much for sharing that. I want to encourage everyone who's here, please put any of your questions in the chat. But we did get some offline questions that I figure I can ask you in the meantime while we wait for those, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So Bri, many businesses and creators like want to build a community, but they struggle to make it like sustainable. So from your experience, what's the biggest mistake people make when they're launching a community, and how can they avoid it?
Yeah, they try to launch multiple communities. That's the biggest mistake, and it's very apropos to this talk. So that's exactly what I mean is like pick the type of community that you want to start with and focus your energy there, like to create an education centric and connection centric space, like to create like a, and we're going to do, and people do this all the time. They come to me and they're like, okay, so we're going to do like a 12-week program that we're going to launch 16 times a year. And then they're also going to go into like their membership where they like, everybody's sharing all of the time. I'm like, yeah, sure they are. It's going to be great.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think you understand, like, because the assumption is like people know how to talk to each other. That's like the number one assumption that people make, and it's just not true. You have to teach them. If you're in um, a a technology where the behaviors are normalized and people have like previous experience and context understanding how to interact with each other in meaningful ways, maybe you'll be okay. But for the vast majority of communities, we have to teach people how to talk to each other. So we make that assumption and we assume we can do both. And really, like, it's you're starting two different communities when you do like both a full-on educational journey and like a membership container. So just pick one. And especially if you're worried about like the lift, like I've tested this with my own community. Like I started in an education centric model and it was too heavy. I was like, I don't have the capacity to do this over and over again. I was like, I needed something that was lighter for my business, so I really totally switched my model to the networking community, and it's been amazing. It's been so good for me, for my business, for the people who are gathering there. It's much more sustainable. Um, okay, I don't think. Oh, thanks, Peter. Um, yeah, thanks, Vanessa. That was a great question,
So
Candace. Did I answer it for you?
yes, yes. And it sounds like they can avoid it by just picking one and getting that right off the bat before making it more complicated.
Yes, absolutely. And the
If
step in this presentation, which we didn't get to today, was the how to test each of these types. And the quick and dirty TLDR of that is like test an event that like is a micro version of whichever category, whichever type of community you are anticipating. Do a test with an event series, that will you'll know immediately if the event's working or not. You'll know immediately if people like resonated with it because they will or they won't show up. So that's why I love events. They're just like they're do or die.
quick feedback loop as well.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Thanks,
Amazing.
Sophia.
Well, it looks like we have a question from Justino. How would you recommend structuring an education and connection based community in terms of pricing? Previously, I'd been working one on one with clients, creating done for you courses and learning communities.
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, so this is a question about like picking the pricing for your community. That's like the direction I'm going. So the way I like to approach pricing, just is from three angles. The first is understanding the competitor landscape and what your members will realistically be comparing your community offer to. So I like to look at like this doesn't need to send us into a competitor spiral. So you have to like kind of control your mindset. If it's not your baby, then you'll be okay. But for people like me, it's this is like a tender thing. But you'll start with just like three competitors. Just map out what's their pricing, what's their frequency, and what's the value? What are you getting from the experience? And just use that to understand like where are you positioning your offer in contrast to theirs? How is it different? That's the first step. The second step is understanding realistically what does this community need to do in order for it to be worth your time. Most of the time when we're starting communities, we're acknowledging that the value of this community is going to come long term. We're not going to see an immediate huge return on investment. Paid communities are a little bit easier to see that return. But we still know that like it's going to take time to develop. So you need to decide, and your team needs to decide, like what's the absolute minimum that you're willing to do this for, and long term, like what does this community need to be generating for the business? Now that can be revenue. That can also community can provide value to your business, even a paid community, in a lot of other ways as well. So you'll want to take that into account. There might be maybe the revenue is less for today, but this is something that like your founder or CEO believes so deeply in, and this is so like integral to your business and the learning and development that you want to facilitate in the world, that like even if it doesn't make a ton of money right off the bat, this is like the importance is there because it gives back to your business in so many other ways. And then the third and final way, and this is more for like the solopreneur who is like creating and launching their own community, is your mindset around your pricing. So at the end of the day, whatever pricing you decide, you have to be willing to, when you are on camera and you're like, my community is $60 a month, paid quarterly and annually, and it's the best freaking deal that you're gonna find. And it's amazing. You get way more than that in value. So you have to be like sold out on it. If you're like, it's $100, I'm sorry, that's like not energetically going to work for you. Like, people are not going to be attracted to it. So whatever pricing you ultimately choose, you have to be confident in that, whether that's you working on your mindset to see higher value and you pick a higher price, or it's also okay to start lower so that you know it's something you're really confident in, and then you can just slowly increase the pricing over time. There's nothing wrong with that model. I hate it when consultants are like, you're all undercharging, you all just need to raise your prices. Because it doesn't work like that. It's not reality.
And you're the one who's going to have to fight the imposter back when you do have to get on camera and say what your pricing is.
Exactly. Where's that freaking consultant been? Yeah.
Exactly. Wow, amazing. Well, I know we're about to wrap up, but I actually always like to ask people I'm interviewing, like, what is like a top tip, that you would love to leave with the audience? Is there any tip that if they only did one thing today to look at the types of their community, what would it be?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, one, everybody should go binge listen to the Dear Bri podcast because it's amazing. There's 12 episodes, and if this is like your space, like this is where you're starting, that podcast season one will be such a good place to start. But really, I think it would be what I mentioned very briefly about the test. If you're just getting started and you're community curious, or you have a community that's like squarely in one of these blocks and you're like either being asked to or you want to expand and evolve the community into another category, into another type, my recommendation is like test it with an event or an event series, and the event has to reflect the design of the new type of community that you're expanding into or starting with. So I have tips on how to do that in my full masterclass, but that's my number one piece of advice.
Amazing. So also watch the masterclass. That sounds like
Yes,
another.
that's 3. You guys got bonus.
I see Chet got one question in. I think we might be able to answer this one in the time we have. So, any easy to use collaborative community software or app that you would recommend that can be accessed through a website when starting out building a community?
Yeah, great question. This is the type of community that has struggled the most with tech because the community is so dependent on your members being able to show up with like the least amount of friction, right? Like the value of the community comes from the interactions between members, and it's a free community. So people aren't going to like overcome new technology. They're not going to create a new login for you because it's free. There's just like a lot less commitment, and it's also like critically important that people are there and they're coming because like that's the point is that people are there and exchanging value. So these communities tend to be the ones that build like quote where people already are most frequently. That is slowly evolving and changing as all of the other types of communities start to adopt like community platform technology, these all-in-one community platforms like Bettermode for enterprise or like Circle or Heartbeat are ones that I work in consistently. So slowly, I would say like networking communities is the first step because if you're paying, like you're going to be like a little bit more like willing to introduce new technology. I think collaborative communities are bringing up the rear, but right now they're still in like places like, God forbid, the Facebook groups. Slack communities, I would say, is like Slack is like the next place, but it's just not like a sustainable financial model. Actually, I have a really great Dear Bri podcast episode about building on Slack that does like a deep dive into this with Noelle Flowers. Definitely listen to that one. I would say, as far as community platforms go, and this is surprising to me, the one that I think collaborative communities have the best potential for, assuming that they can kind of get their shit together, is the school platform, which sounds so silly, and I will say it only because I've created a video that like absolutely ripped them apart. Here's why. I think actually they have the fastest, easiest product to use, which is they also have like this really toxic broy culture. And if they can like put a lid on that, I think it actually could become like one of the best spaces for collaborative communities. But so I say that with like a lot of like trepidation, but I actually think like the speed and ease of use is the best compared to other all-in-one platforms. But go check out my YouTube video where I compare School to Circle and like really give them a good licking.
That was personally one of my favorites that you've done. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Bri, and for sharing all this really amazing insights. I can see everyone in the chat is very grateful and saying thank you as well. If everyone can give Bri a virtual round of applause. I don't know if we have that functionality here, but thank you so much. We're also going to share your LinkedIn in the chat again if anyone would like to connect with you there. And then just a final reminder to everyone before we log off, if you're not yet in the Led by Community space, we're going to share the membership link with you here as well. And don't forget to register for all of our upcoming events. We're also going to share the event calendar with you here if you want to check out who's coming to talk to us next. And that is all from me. Thank you so much, Bri. It was such a great talk.
Thanks, Candace. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everybody. I hope you have a great evening and day for you, Bri, so early in the morning.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.